Republicans need to draw a line. They must again reject Paul Nehlen and force him from the party. Evan Siegfried joining us now. He's also the author of GOP GPS. And Brian Robinson, Republican strategist and former assistant chief of staff to Georgia Governor Nathan Deal with us. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Evan, I want to start with you. And you rightly point out in this article that Sarah Palin, Steve Bannon had both supported Nehlen last time around. Steve Bannon has since rejected him. Steve Bannon also supported Roy Moore. First of all, what is Steve Bannon's potency moving forward in these elections? And two, do you believe Nehlen will be rejected?
Well, Steve Bannon helped create Paul Nehlen. He supported him in 2016, and then when he was campaigning for Roy Moore, he brought Paul Nehlen with him to rallies. And Paul Nehlen was campaigning and hitting the stump for Roy Moore, saying he's a great guy and it's us against them and it's the establishment. So Steve Bannon had said, well, we're distancing ourselves from him, but Breitbart didn't help create him. Breitbart absolutely created him, just like they helped to make Roy Moore relevant, Ken Buck, Sharon Angle. I mean, we're seeing from 2010 on, when Steve Bannon gets involved in races and candidates, he really gives Democrats a big win. This is why you don't allow children at the grown-ups table. I think that what we're seeing here is that Steve Bannon is realizing when you go out and fully embrace white nationalism and anti-Semitism like Paul Nehlen did, and Paul Nehlen's even attacking very far-right conservatives as shilling for shekels and other things, I think we're seeing the real blowback to Steve Bannon and what he's created.
Nehlen definitely, though, has quite a social media presence. Brian, what do you make of that situation? And how strong can the social media with Nehlen, how might it help him? Social media has done a lot for a lot of candidates, let's put it bluntly.
You know, this candidate had all of those advantages in the last election cycle and lost to Paul Ryan by 70 points. So I think GOP primary voters in Wisconsin have already taken a very public stand on how they feel about this guy's rhetoric and his positions on the issues. And I think that Republican leadership throughout the country has done the same thing. Speaker Ryan has spoken out time and time again against Republican candidates or Republican office holders who have crossed the line when it comes to racist comments. Mitch McConnell has been very upfront in his taking on of Steve Bannon, as Steve Bannon has taken McConnell on. But McConnell is right. It takes a real political genius to lose a Republican seat in Alabama. And that's what we're up against this year. Bannon's still going to have a lot of juice. He's still going to be able to get funding for primary challengers. But if we get more Roy Moores, we are going to put our Senate majority in serious danger.
So let me ask you this. When we talk about what's happening, historically midterms aren't favorable to sitting presidents, but there are more than 450 seats up for grabs in Congress. The economy, President Trump's approval ratings at 35%, not particularly something to brag about. The approval ratings for Congress, not something to brag about either. But the economic numbers we're seeing are. I'm wondering, Evan, is there a belief that those economic numbers will supersede other issues going to the polls in the midterms?
Ask Governor-elect Kim Guandano, Ed Gillespie, and Senator-elect Roy Moore. None of them won their races in 2017, despite the economy. We're going out and we're seeing a huge backlash to the Republican Party among two groups, women and millennials. The Republicans, we've always had a gender gap with women, but we've always been able to rely on married women to sustain us. But married women are coming out and voting against us in large numbers in New Jersey, in Alabama, and in Virginia, and that's a canary in the coal mine. And then millennials, that's a big problem. Already only 19% of millennials, the largest generation in America and the largest sector of the electorate, identify with the Republican Party and Republican values. 71% say the Republican Party doesn't care about them. We're a party that's contracting. In fact, between December 2015 and March 2017, we lost 23% of young Republicans, which are Republicans aged 18 to 29. More and more younger Republicans are wondering, is there a place for them in the Republican Party? And to Brian's point about denouncing Paul Nehlen and the likes of him, it's a good thing that we do that because more and more millennials believe we are the party of racists, and we need to show them that we aren't. So we should denounce these people like Paul Nehlen loudly and consistently.
When you talk about those married women that you just mentioned and some of the younger generation, how do you make that correction, Evan?
Well, we have to talk about issues that matter to them, particularly with millennials. Bernie Sanders got millennials to vote for him because he talked about issues that matter to him. Student debt. His solutions were wrong, but we have conservative solutions to student debt that would be actually very appealing because millennials are the most fiscally conservative generation since the Great Depression. The average millennial graduated in 2016 from college.
So what do you tell that average millennial?
What
is your argument?
My argument is that the Republican Party will actually help them more long-term in fiscal situations. I think that we can talk about student debt issues. We can talk about entitlement reform. As a millennial myself, I don't think I'm going to be getting Social Security because it's going to go bankrupt. And whenever somebody in the Congress tries to do it, you get the AARP losing it and saying, you can't touch this because you're going to hurt seniors. When in reality, it's not to hurt seniors. It's to protect all Americans, and especially Americans like me who are younger. So,
Brian, when we talk about who's influential in these races, you've told potential candidates here in Georgia to get on the Trump train or to get out of the GOP politics. Do you still believe that to be true?
The numbers are very clear. More than 80%, and in some states, in Georgia particularly, close to 90% of likely Republican primary voters approve of the job that Donald Trump is doing. So to get to a general where you're going to face the headwinds that come with Trump's approval ratings and the poor ratings of Republicans in Congress, you've got to win a primary. And there is no future, there is no pathway to victory in primaries in most parts of this country for Republicans if they are anti-Trump or if they're never Trumpers. There's just no way to win. And I'm not saying that's going to be the case always. There could always be a pendulum swing, particularly if there is a murderous, bloody 2018 midterm election. But for now, Trump is the Republican Party. He is the head. He sets the agenda. He sets the tone. And if you don't get on board with what he's saying, you need to run as something other than a Republican because you're not going to get on the general election ballot.